The ship remained silent, suspended above the skyline like a watchful sentinel. A low pulse of light emanated from its underside, scanning the surroundings in slow, deliberate waves. For a few long moments, nothing happened. Then, a voice, clear and melodic, echoed in the minds of those watching. "We come in peace," the voice rang out in every language, as if the ship understood the varied tongues of humanity. It was not a voice from the speakers, but something more, telepathic, invasive, yet strangely comforting. People gasped in shock, looking at one another, unsure of whether to run, shout, or simply stand in awe. The military was already mobilizing, but no one knew what to do. Fighter jets roared past, their presence only adding to the chaos. A strange calm washed over the crowd. The voice continued, "We are the Alins. Our purpose is to assist." The hum of the ship grew louder as it slowly descended to a more manageable height, hovering a mere 50 feet above the ground. As it lowered, a translucent dome formed around it, preventing anyone from approaching too closely. This was no ordinary landing. It was a calculated show of power and presence. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the dome. Unlike anything human, it stood tall and slender, radiating an almost ethereal glow. Its features were smooth and elegant, but not like any being from Earth. The figure's eyes were wide, black orbs, seemingly reflecting the cosmos itself. A sense of peace and intelligence emanated from it, a stark contrast to the panic unfolding on the streets. The crowd stood still, the tension in the air palpable. "I am Valko, leader of the Alins," the voice resonated in everyone's minds again, this time accompanied by an image of the being's form in front of them. Valko raised a hand in an unmistakable gesture of peace. "We have come to offer our assistance. Your world is in grave danger." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, questions flying. What did it mean? Was this a threat? How could they possibly be in danger when everything seemed so peaceful? The military was not taking any chances. Soldiers surrounded the area, their weapons drawn but pointed downward, uncertain of what to do next. A tense silence followed, broken only by the occasional shout from officials who were scrambling to organize. One man, a seasoned government official, stood at the forefront of the crowd. He was older, graying at the temples, and his face showed the weariness of a man used to handling crises. His name was General Edward Harper, and his eyes were narrowed as he scanned the alien before him. Though trained for military engagements, he had never imagined facing something like this. "What do you mean by danger?" Harper finally spoke, his voice cutting through the confusion. The question was simple, but filled with weight. Valko's eyes shifted, his form slightly vibrating as he spoke, now more directly to the general. "In the coming days, your planet will pass through a cosmic anomaly, a disturbance in the fabric of space-time. It will destabilize your atmosphere, disrupt your magnetic fields, and cause a cascade of natural disasters. The survival of your species is uncertain." The words echoed in Harper's mind, but it was the way they settled in his chest that made them feel real. The sudden realization that the planet was on the brink of disaster overwhelmed him. But why now? Emma Lawson, a scientist from the nearby university, shouted from the crowd. She had pushed her way forward, her curiosity overcoming her fear. She was close enough to see Valko's face, an expression of solemn concern etched across his features. "We have been observing your planet for millennia," Valko explained, his voice soft, but with a gravity that made every word feel important. "Your species is on the precipice of an era that could shape the course of your survival. We were not the only ones to notice the anomaly, but we are the only ones capable of assisting you." Emma stood frozen, her mind racing. It wasn't just the disaster they spoke of. It was the fact that an advanced race had been watching humanity for so long. She had always suspected there was more to the universe than Earth could grasp, but hearing it confirmed left her both thrilled and deeply unsettled. "Why should we trust you?" a voice from the back of the crowd yelled. It was a skeptical citizen, their face twisted in fear. "How do we know you're not just here to take over?" Valko's expression softened. "We are not here to conquer or harm. Your species, our civilization was nearly destroyed by a galactic war. We seek only to help. The choice to accept or reject our assistance lies with you." The silence that followed felt heavy, pregnant with possibilities. General Harper turned his head slowly to Emma, who was still staring at Valko, absorbing every word. He understood her skepticism, but something about the way the alien spoke seemed genuine. Before anyone could respond, Valko raised his hand again, and a holographic projection of a star map appeared above his palm, showing a visual representation of the galactic event. "This anomaly is not something your world has encountered before. It is a convergence of cosmic energy, amplified by a collapsing star at the edge of your galaxy. Its impact will be disastrous, and Earth is directly in its path." The projection zoomed in on Earth, showing the projected energy wave as it approached. It was staggering in scale, a massive wave of cosmic energy, capable of altering the very core of the planet. "We have the technology to shield your planet from this event." Valko continued, his tone unwavering. "But we will need your cooperation. Together we can stabilize your world. If we fail, Earth as you know it will cease to exist." General Harper's thoughts raced. This was too much. Too many implications. He had to act. "What do you want from us?" His voice was firm, demanding an answer, though his mind was still clouded with uncertainty. "Your trust and your cooperation," Valko replied, his eyes meeting Harper's directly. "We have the knowledge to save your world, but we cannot do it without you. The decision is yours, and yours alone." The words hung in the air, and for a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the decision rested on the shoulders of those who could make it. It wasn't just about survival. It was about whether or not humanity could accept the help of a race from the stars. The following days were chaotic. The world had changed overnight, and the news networks couldn't stop talking about the alien encounter. Leaders from all over the world convened in emergency meetings, trying to determine what to do. Some advocated for immediate acceptance of the aliens' help, while others feared the consequences of aligning with an alien race. Dr. Emma Lawson found herself thrust into the middle of the political storm. She was one of the few scientists who had been brought in to meet directly with the aliens, and they had shared with her their technology. Some of it was beyond her comprehension, but she could see the potential for it to save Earth. Sitting across from Valko in a secure government facility, Emma couldn't help but ask the question that had been gnawing at her. "Why didn't you help us sooner? Why wait until now?" Valko's expression softened, though his answer was clear. "We have only just acquired the means to do so. We were not ready until now. And there is another reason. Your species had to reach a certain level of development. We watched, waiting for the moment when you would be ready to understand and accept this knowledge. The time is now." As Emma and Valko continued their discussions, it became clear that the decision would not be easy. Political, social, and military powers all had to weigh in, and there were factions in every corner of the globe that had their own agendas. But one thing was certain: the clock was ticking. Earth's survival hinged on a choice, and humanity had to make it before it was too late. The weeks following Valko's arrival were filled with intense meetings, secretive discussions, and increasing uncertainty. Governments around the world scrambled to prepare for the impending disaster while grappling with the reality of dealing with extraterrestrial beings. Emma Lawson had become one of the leading figures in the global coalition that worked with the Alins. Her research on the alien technology and her strategic insights into Earth's survival made her a critical asset, and she found herself in constant meetings with world leaders, trying to convince them of the truth of what the aliens had promised. Yet, despite Valko's calm and reasoned assurances, there was no universal agreement. People were divided. Fear, curiosity, and hope collided in the halls of the United Nations, in every major city, and even in private homes. Some saw the Alins offer as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fix Earth's environmental, political, and social crises. Others saw it as a threat, a manipulation, or worse, a foreign occupation. One morning, Emma found herself sitting in a high-security conference room, facing representatives from the United States, Russia, China, and the European Union. The mood in the room was tense, with leaders speaking in hushed voices, casting wary glances toward the large holographic display of the cosmic anomaly. "We can't afford to ignore this. We're talking about the fate of the entire planet." General Harper, who had recently been appointed to lead the military operations related to the Alins, declared with a forceful voice, "The data from the Alins matches our own observations. The cosmic event is real. But we also can't simply hand over control of our technology and infrastructure to an alien species," argued President Liang of China, his face grim. "What guarantee do we have that this is not a power grab? That they won't exploit our weaknesses?" Emma, who had been listening intently, leaned forward. "We don't have all the answers, but the Alins haven't asked for anything in return other than cooperation. They've shared everything they know about the event, and their technology is a significant leap forward. The reality is, without their help, we risk losing everything." A murmur ran through the room as heads turned toward each other, some reluctant, some resolute. "And what about the technology?" President Richardson of the United States asked, his voice skeptical. "We're talking about altering our energy infrastructure, our systems. What if it's too much too soon?" Emma nodded, understanding the concern. "It's not without risk, but the Alins have provided us with blueprints that are designed to be safe and scalable. We've already begun tests on a small scale, and the results have been promising. Their technology is designed to harmonize with Earth's systems, not replace them. We can grow into it." "How long do we have to make this decision?" Russian Prime Minister Viktorov asked, his tone calm but with a hint of impatience. Emma glanced at the holographic map again. The cosmic anomaly was still weeks away, but the time to act was growing short. "We have a limited window. The energy wave will reach Earth in a little over a month. We need to begin building the planetary shield as soon as possible, if we are to have a chance." General Harper looked directly at the Russian leader. "We must trust each other in this moment. Humanity cannot afford division, not now." The room fell into silence again, the weight of the decision hanging over them like a thick fog. Everyone understood what was at stake, but the fear of the unknown was strong. In the days that followed the tense UN meeting, it became clear that not everyone was on board. A powerful faction of resistance groups, led by individuals who opposed foreign interference, began to gain momentum. Social media was flooded with fear-mongering rhetoric, suggesting that the Alins' assistance was a guise for a grander scheme. This rhetoric spread like wildfire, sparking protests and violent demonstrations around the world. One evening, Emma found herself sitting in the command center, watching as images of rioting crowds in Paris, New York, and Moscow flashed across the screen. In the midst of this chaos, Valko stood beside her, his glowing eyes filled with an expression of quiet sorrow. "We cannot force them to accept our help, Emma," Valko said softly. "I had hoped that humanity would see the truth, but I understand their fear. Our kind is unfamiliar, and they cannot know what lies beneath the surface of our words." "I know," Emma replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "I've spent hours trying to explain the science, the technology, everything. But it's like trying to convince people that the Earth isn't flat. Fear is a powerful force." Valko nodded, his long fingers lightly touching the holographic console. "The resistance is growing, and it will become harder to persuade them to trust us. The more divided your world becomes, the harder it will be to unite when the time comes." Emma exhaled sharply, turning away from the display. "I don't know what else to do. People are scared. I'm scared too. What if we're wrong?" "That fear is the true test," Valco said. To face the unknown with courage, and the strength to accept help, even when it's difficult. That is how a species survives, how it evolves. Emma looked at him, the alien wisdom shining through his words. There was no easy way out of this. The choice rested with humanity, and it would take all of them to decide how to move forward. Meanwhile, as the world teetered between cooperation and distrust, the resistance led by a man named Liam Cross grew in strength. Cross, a former military officer who had seen the darker side of government secrets, had made it his mission to protect humanity from what he saw as an existential threat posed by the Alins. His message resonated with people who feared the loss of control over their future and their freedom. We cannot allow our future to be dictated by an alien race, Liam Cross argued in a televised speech that quickly went viral. We must stand united against the Alins and any others who wish to impose their will on our world. We have to preserve our sovereignty and fight for the future of humanity. Cross's words struck a chord with millions, and his movement spread rapidly. Protests turned violent in many places, and governments found themselves struggling to keep order as the lines between allies and enemies blurred. One night, Emma received a message from General Harper. Emma, the resistance is getting stronger. They're threatening to take action against any installation where we're working with the Alins. We need to make a decision about how to protect our progress, or everything could fall apart. Emma sat back in her chair, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. The world was divided, and time was running out. The stakes had never been higher. If humanity couldn't overcome its own fears and distrust, they wouldn't just lose the opportunity to save Earth. They would destroy themselves in the process. As the conflict between the factions escalated, Emma and Valco discovered something startling. The resistance wasn't just a spontaneous reaction to fear. It had been orchestrated from the shadows by a powerful group of individuals with vested interests in maintaining the status quo. They had infiltrated governments, manipulated public opinion, and ensured that fear of the Alins would dominate the narrative. This discovery shocked Emma. These were people who had seen the opportunity for change but had chosen to cling to power instead. The realization made her question everything. Had humanity truly reached the point where they could trust themselves to make the right decisions? Valco, sensing her frustration, reassured her. There are always those who fear change, Emma. It is part of the cycle of every species. But there are always those who fight for what is right, no matter the odds. You must be among them. With the Alins offering their technology and the resistance pushing back against their intervention, the world stood on the brink of a new kind of war, one not fought with guns and bombs, but with ideologies and the fate of Earth itself. Would humanity come together to protect their future, or would fear and division tear them apart? The days began to blend together as Emma Lawson worked tirelessly with the Alins to implement their technology. The timeline was growing tighter with each passing hour, and despite the progress, the resistance and political opposition were pushing back harder than ever. Emma had always been an optimist, but the mounting resistance, the divisions within the global community, and the looming disaster made her wonder if there was enough time to bring humanity together. Each country was working on building their portion of the planetary shield, a multi-layered system designed to protect the Earth from the cosmic energy that would soon hit. But it wasn't just a physical barrier. There were environmental adjustments needed, climate stabilization techniques, and energy shifts that were all interconnected. The Alins' technology was intricate and advanced, but the task ahead was still monumental. General Harper was at the forefront of coordinating military defense, ensuring that the Global Shield project was secure from sabotage. He'd made the difficult decision to station armed troops near key installations where the Alins' work was being conducted. The military couldn't afford to let the situation spiral out of control, especially with the resistance movement. Growing stronger each day, Emma, sitting at her desk surrounded by data and projections, rubbed her eyes and looked at the holographic image of Earth. The planet was in peril, and the window to act was closing rapidly. I just don't know if we're moving fast enough," Emma confessed to Valko one day as they stood in the observation deck, watching as human teams worked side by side with the Alins to lay down the foundations of the shield. Valko turned his gaze toward her, his expression serene despite the mounting pressure. "You have made tremendous progress, Emma. But, even more importantly, you have united people in a way that no one else has been able to. This is your true strength. But what if it's not enough? What if it's too late to convince them?" she asked, frustration in her voice. "Your species has always been resilient," Valko replied softly. "And in the face of overwhelming odds, you've chosen to fight for survival. That is something I've seen in many civilizations. Fear may try to control you, but courage is the path to salvation." Emma let his words sink in. The task at hand was enormous, and time was slipping through her fingers. But Valko was right. Humanity had always faced crises, and somehow they had made it through. The question was, would they be able to do it again? The days slipped away in a blur. Earth's citizens continued to grapple with the impending disaster, torn between trust and fear. The Alins had already begun deploying their defensive systems, building the shield around the planet's most vulnerable points. Yet, the resistance had reached a boiling point. Clashes between protesters and military personnel had turned violent in several major cities, and some government leaders had begun to waver. In the United States, President Richardson, who had initially backed the Aliens' plan, found himself facing increasing pressure from factions within his own government. Senators and military leaders who opposed the Aliens were demanding a re-evaluation of the situation. Some wanted to push back against the alien influence, believing that humanity should find its own solution. In a private meeting, Richardson turned to General Harper. "The resistance is growing, and if we're not careful, they'll convince the public that the Aliens are a threat. The last thing we need right now is civil war." Harper nodded grimly. "It's not just civil war, Mr. President. It's a war for survival. If we don't succeed in building this shield, the cosmic event will wipe us out. The Aliens' technology is our only chance." Richardson sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, but we can't just ignore the public's concerns. We need to prove that we're in control, that we're not ceding our sovereignty to these aliens." "I understand, sir," Harper said. "But we're at the crossroads now. There's no more room for doubt. We have to go all in." Meanwhile, in the streets, the resistance continued to gain momentum. Liam Cross, their charismatic leader, made a powerful speech in Washington, D.C., rallying thousands of supporters. "We cannot be controlled by these extraterrestrials. Our future is ours to decide, not theirs. We must reject their interference before it's too late." As Cross spoke, crowds cheered. His words resonated with people who feared losing their autonomy, who believed that the Aliens had some hidden agenda. Cross had cleverly framed the cosmic disaster as a hoax, a fear tactic to impose alien rule. The resistance had become more than just a protest. It had become a movement with growing support. Emma watched it all unfold on the news, her heart heavy with worry. She knew the truth. The Aliens weren't here to enslave humanity. They were offering help. But with each passing day, more and more people were falling under Cross's influence. As the energy wave approached, there was no more time for debate. The planetary shield had to be fully operational, or the world would suffer the catastrophic effects of the cosmic anomaly. Emma and the Aliens worked around the clock, coordinating the last adjustments and ensuring that the energy shields were ready to be deployed. But resistance forces had now infiltrated several key sites, sabotaging efforts and spreading misinformation. One night, as the countdown clock ticked to its final hours, Emma received a distressing call from General Harper. The resistance had launched an attack on one of the most critical installations, a power station designed to stabilize the Earth's core against the cosmic shockwave. Without it, the shield would be incomplete, and the planet would be left vulnerable. "We need your help, Emma," Harper said urgently. The Alins can't stabilize the power core without your input. We're running out of time. Emma's heart raced as she looked at Valko, who was standing beside her, his expression calm but filled with unspoken concern. We can't afford another delay. I'll be there. They arrived at the power station just as the first explosions rocked the facility. Armed resistance fighters had stormed the area, and firefights broke out between them and the military personnel stationed there. Emma's mind was in a panic. If the station was destroyed, there would be no hope left. Valko stepped forward, his voice steady. We will not let them destroy this. You must get inside and initiate the backup systems. I'll do it, Emma said, determination in her voice. Valko placed a hand on her shoulder. Be cautious. You must survive this. Humanity's survival depends on you. As she entered the station, the chaos outside continued. The explosions were getting closer. Emma rushed to the control center, where she found technicians frantically working to stabilize the energy levels. The interference from the resistance had caused significant damage, but there was still hope. With Valko's guidance, Emma managed to activate the backup systems, triggering the power surge needed to reinforce the shield. But as the system began to stabilize, a final explosion ripped through the building. The walls shook, and Emma was thrown to the ground. For a moment, everything went black. When she awoke, Valko was beside her, his glowing form casting a soft light in the darkened room. You've done it, he said softly. The shield is complete. But the victory was bittersweet. As Emma stood up, she saw the devastation outside. The resistance had lost their fight, but the damage had been done. People had died. The world had been torn apart by fear and division. I did what I had to, Emma said, her voice hollow. But at what cost? Valko didn't answer. The cosmic event was mere hours away, and the shield was humanity's last chance. They had saved the planet, but the scars of this conflict would last far longer than the shield ever would. The cosmic wave approached, and for the first time in history, Earth's fate was no longer in the hands of any one country or leader. It was in the hands of humanity as a whole. Would they survive the event, or would they succumb to the chaos they had created? As the energy wave collided with the shield, the entire planet held its breath. The protective barriers hummed and crackled, their energy draining into the Earth's atmosphere, stabilizing it just in time. The wave passed harmlessly over the planet, leaving it shaken but intact. Earth had survived. But the victory was bittersweet. Humanity had come together in the face of extinction, but it had come at a cost. The resistance had divided them, fear had nearly torn them apart, and as the dust settled, humanity was left to confront a harsh truth. Survival was just the beginning. The real challenge would be rebuilding trust, learning from their mistakes, and choosing a future that didn't rely on fear, division, or alien intervention. Emma stood on the balcony of the command center, gazing out at the dawn of a new era. The Alins had kept their promise, but the next chapter of Earth's history was theirs to write. The shield had held. The cosmic wave passed. Over Earth, its immense energy crackling harmlessly against the invisible barrier. The planet was saved, but the cost was far from clear. Emma stood at the center of the command deck, staring at the projection of Earth on the massive screen in front of her. The wave had passed, but her mind was still reeling from the devastation. Cities had been ravaged by riots, the resistance had lost its battle, and now, as Earth took its first breath after the disaster, the true struggle for humanity's future was just beginning. The sound of approaching footsteps broke her trance, and she turned to see General Harper standing by the door, his face grim. "It's over, Emma. We've survived," he said, his voice devoid of the triumph one might expect. But now the real work begins. Emma exhaled slowly. She understood. Saving Earth was just the first step. Healing the fractures that had been made, human against human, government against its people, alien against alien, was going to be a far harder fight, and it wasn't just the wounds of the planet they had to fix. "Where's Valko?" Emma asked, searching the room with her eyes. Harper hesitated before responding. "He's gone, Emma." Emma froze. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" The general shifted uncomfortably. "The Alins have completed their mission. They said it was time for them to leave. Earth has to stand on its own now." Emma's heart sank. She couldn't imagine Earth without their help, without Valko's calm guidance. She had trusted him, even in the darkest moments. But the shield, the technology, the energy systems, what happens now? They can't just walk away. Emma's voice cracked with frustration. "That's the thing, Emma," Harper said, stepping closer. "The Alins never intended to stay. They've given us the tools to survive. What happens next is on us." The days that followed were a blur of political upheaval and unrest. The cosmic wave had passed, but Earth was left teetering on the edge of an entirely new reality. The Alins' technology, now integrated into Earth systems, promised unimaginable advances: clean energy, climate control, rapid technological progress. But it came with a catch. Some governments, including the US and Russia, began taking control of the alien technology, hoarding it for their own use, wary of sharing it with others. Earth had become a powder keg of power struggles, as the world's remaining superpowers vied for control over the resources and knowledge the Alins had left behind. Emma watched in horror as military leaders and political figures manipulated the technology to solidify their dominance, keeping the rest of the world in the dark. The Alins' promise of global cooperation had been twisted into something else entirely, and the resistance? They hadn't disappeared. Liam Cross, the man who had led the fight against the Alins' help, had vanished after the riots, but his influence had not waned. He had become a martyr to millions who still feared the consequences of alien intervention. Cross's message echoed across social media and underground movements. The Alins are not the saviors of Earth. They are the architects of its downfall. As the world faced the fallout, Emma's frustration boiled over. The political fractures were deepening, and humanity, once on the brink of extinction, was now facing a new threat, its own division. One evening, as Emma sat with General Harper, the calm of the command center was shattered by an urgent call. The resistance had launched a final offensive against key installations, aiming to seize control of the alien technology that had been weaponized by the world's superpowers. "We can't let them get hold of the tech," Harper growled, his hands tightening around the tablet displaying security footage from various installations. "If they succeed, they could undo everything we fought for." But Emma had other ideas. "The truth needs to come out, Harper. We've been lied to, by governments, by the military, by the very people we trusted to lead us. They're using this technology to control us, and they're willing to start a war to keep it. The world needs to know the truth. We can't let them have this power." Harper looked at her, his face hardening. "You want to expose them? Do you understand the consequences of that? We're talking about destabilizing everything we've worked for." "I know what I'm doing, General. I've seen enough. We're
not going to survive by letting power-hungry elites control this. We need to make the world see the truth." The battle lines had been drawn. As Emma and Harper scrambled to prepare for the exposure of the corruption, they received an unexpected
visitor. Valko had returned. His presence, though unexpected, was more unsettling than comforting. He appeared suddenly, materializing before them in the command center like a figure out of a dream. "Valko, you're back," Emma said, almost relieved, but the sight of him made her heart race with unanswered questions. Valko's eyes, once so calm and reassuring, now seemed distant, as though the weight of everything that had transpired had changed him. He stepped forward, his movements deliberate, yet still graceful. "I never wanted this outcome, Emma," Valko said, his voice like the hum of distant stars. Humanity was meant to choose its own path. But I misjudged the depths of your fears and the consequences of your choices. Emma's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? You helped us. You gave us the chance to survive. And yet you have failed to use that opportunity wisely, Valko replied, his tone now colder, more distant. The very technology I shared with you is now being twisted to control your people. The Alins did not come to conquer. We came to offer salvation. But the seeds of your own downfall have already been planted. This division, this fight for control, will destroy you long after the cosmic event has passed. Emma's mind raced. So, you knew this would happen? I suspected it, Valko said quietly. Humanity is both capable of great cooperation and great destruction. The choice is yours. But I warn you, if you continue down this path, Earth will not survive the next crisis. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. Then why not stay? Why not help us fix it? Valko shook his head. My people cannot remain here any longer. Earth is no longer our concern. You must decide whether to make the right choices on your own. Before Emma could respond, Valko turned and began to fade away, his body dissolving into the light. We gave you the tools, Emma. What you do with them is yours to decide. And then, he was gone. As Valko vanished, the world was already on the brink of chaos. The resistance had escalated their attack, and the elites, desperate to maintain control, were willing to start a new war, this time between the nations of Earth. Everything Emma had fought for seemed on the verge of collapse. But there was one final card to play. Emma, alongside General Harper, made a bold move. She broadcasted a global message, exposing the corrupt manipulation of the alien technology by the world's powers. The footage was damning, showing the weaponization of the shield technology, the silencing of dissent, and the brutal repression of the people by those in power. She demanded that humanity come together, not as divided nations, but as a united species to take control of their own future. The broadcast was seen by billions, and the shockwaves rippled across the globe. Protests erupted in the streets, not against the Alins or their technology, but against the corruption and abuse of power that had fueled the world's divisions. In the face of this newfound unity, the leaders who had once manipulated the system were forced to step down. For the first time in years, humanity's collective voice echoed louder than the cries of fear and distrust. Months later, Earth had begun its slow, arduous process of rebuilding. The shield remained in place, a silent reminder of the fragility of life and the power of human choice. Emma stood on the balcony of the newly constructed United Earth Council, looking out at a world forever changed. The people of Earth had chosen to embrace cooperation, not just with one another, but with the legacy of the Alins. They had salvaged the future, but the path forward would be a difficult one. And though the shadow of fear still loomed, Emma knew that humanity had learned one crucial lesson. Survival came not from the strength of technology, but from the strength of unity. The aliens had given them the tools to survive the catastrophe, but it was humanity's responsibility to decide how they would use them. The question remained, would they succeed in forging a future worthy of the gift they had been given? As the sun set on Earth, Emma held her breath and hoped they would.